This is Matthew Kratter's Bitcoin University. Today I want to talk about first, do no harm to Bitcoin. This comes from the Latin phrase primum non nocere. Always good advice for doctors and probably should have been followed a bit more closely since 2020. But today we're talking about Bitcoin, of course, and it's yet another way of making the same point that I made in yesterday's video, which was called Risk Analysis 101 for Bitcoin Core devs. I talked about some of the good things that could be coming out of Core 30, like good mempool fee estimation, good block relay, good block propagation, etc. I went on to say these all sound like worthy goals, but are they really worth destroying Bitcoin in the process? Because best case scenario, all these things are improved. And then we talked about some of the worst case scenarios. And it's very important to consider this. It doesn't appear to me that the Bitcoin Core devs have considered the downside as well as they should have. But now we have Michael Saylor weighing in on the debate by retweeting this video that was compiled by Bitcoin Anon. This is Peter McCormick on what Bitcoin did and talking to Michael Saylor. So let's listen to the first 2 minutes of this.
There's like a new guard of Bitcoin developers and an old guard of Bitcoin developers. The old guard's very conservative, and the new guard is wanting them to move out of the way because they want to do things, they want to build things.
If you were to ask me my opinion on Bitcoin development, I would say considerate and conservative. I think ossification is a straw man put forth by people that have a progressive proposal. And if someone says, hold it now, let's think about it, right? They can say, well, you just don't want to change anything. Well, I mean, the truth is, I think it's a mistake to presume that you have to change the protocol in order for Bitcoin to be successful.
Right, okay, so you could almost like partition this between what is opcodes and expansion of what the protocol can do versus, when, like you said, integrity and security, protection of the network from catastrophic failures, attacks, hacks. Are you seeing those as two different things?
Defend the network, don't F with the network. Make sure the network is healthy. Don't introduce risks, unnecessary risks to the network that might infect it with the disease.
So that's a basic message. I think it's an important message. But what's really exciting is when you fast forward all the way to the end of this video, it looks like Michael retweeted this video without making any changes to it. And it ends saying, protect the network, don't F with the network, which is what he just said in that video, run knots. So I would take this as at least a subtle endorsement of knots, which is great to hear Michael weighing in on this. If you want to hear a little bit more about what he had to say about Bitcoin knots back in June, I'll put a link to this in the description notes below. So that's very exciting news. Michael Saylor coming out in favor of Bitcoin knots. And now we also have, this is absolutely unbelievable as well, the chairman of Binance. I never thought I'd be saying these words. Gabriel, Abed, is saying Bitcoin is decentralized money, not. So it looks like Binance will be running knots, if I'm interpreting this correctly, or at least he's coming down and taking a stance against Bitcoin Core and what they're trying to do with Core 30. So this is very courageous and very exciting to see as well. It's really, yesterday was a very, very significant day for our fight against this release of Bitcoin Core 30. As Jim points out here, when will Bitcoin Core swallow their pride and admit they made a mistake? It isn't too late to delay the release of version 30 and consider the ridiculous position they've taken. So I still hold out hope for this, that they can sort of keep their egos in check, swallow their pride, and not roll out this disastrous update, which is Bitcoin Core 30. Also wanted to touch on a couple other issues. This was the cycle. Unfortunately, it appears we lost Adam Back, as I talked about Adam Back running Malware, coming out firmly in favor of changing Bitcoin and changing mempool policy in Bitcoin Core 30, saying he's going to run Bitcoin Core 30. And unfortunately, it looks like we've lost another legend as well in this battle, Greg Maxwell, coming out, I should say actually crashing out in the most spectacular fashion, basically on the Bitcoin mailing list, saying, if you need, this is a quote from Greg Maxwell, because if you need to regulate traffic through your node, there's one simple, perfectly effective way, blocks only. Any other way is ineffective. And then he goes on to say that basically if you were taking control of your own mempool and filtering like everyone has done, even people running Bitcoin Core software since 2014 and before, that if you want to filter your mempool, it's basically as if you are living in an authoritarian culture and you're publicly stoning people caught fornicating. And then he has this phrase, technology can enable distributed authoritarianism. So he's equating authoritarianism with everyone individually choosing their own node mempool policy. As Mechanic sums it up here, quote, if you don't relay what you deem to be spam around Bitcoin, that is equivalent to stoning fornicators to death. What planet is Greg on? And Giacomo Zucco writing, I often parroted the kill your hero, the quote unquote kill your hero bit, but I just had to kill people I superficially supported after some agreement, often equally superficial. Until now, I had not seen my literal Bitcoin hero, namely Greg Maxwell, who was, it's hard to understate how important he was, especially in the earlier years and especially during the block size war years. He was really one of the good guys, as was Adam Back. But as Giacomo writes here, until now, I have not seen my literal Bitcoin hero becoming batshit crazy, absurdly arrogant, and totally, utterly, hysterically irrational. I guess I was repeating the slogan without real understanding of the horrible feeling. Well, growing up, I guess. And here's another note from Greg Maxwell to the list, and this is in response to a BIP that, a mempool policy BIP essentially. Greg writes, this appears to substantially misunderstand the purpose of the mempool broadly in the network. Its purpose is to model what will get mined. If you're not doing that, you might as well set blocks only. Significant discrepancies are harmful to the system and promote centralization and fail to achieve a useful purpose in any case. What marginal benefits might be provided do not justify building and deploying the technological infrastructure for massive censorship. This is just crazy talk. People basically filtering out their mempools as they've always done, that this is somehow infrastructure for massive censorship. And then Greg goes on to write, if you think this is important, I advise you to select another cryptocurrency which is compatible with such authoritarian leanings. Though I am unsure if any existence, it is such a transparently pointless direction. And Mechanic sums this up. According to Greg, having dynamic control over what your node accepts and rejects is authoritarian. I don't really know how to explain this further. Nodes are not a free service you run on behalf of miners. And it's very important to see, Greg is again talking about this idea of mempool consistency. If you're not making your mempool look like what's going to be mined, you are doing things wrong. This is a complete reversal of how Bitcoin Core has always treated Bitcoin and the mempool. 2014 Bitcoin Core, we will defend the network from the spammers with our filters. This was the whole op return wars, which we've spoken about. 2025 Bitcoin Core, Adam Back, Greg Maxwell, all these legends, basically saying you're a fascist if your own mempool doesn't match what a malicious miner wants to mine. In summary, Core is definitely cooked, and it's very sad to have to slay your heroes, metaphorically, of course, like Adam Back and Greg Maxwell. But again, this is Bitcoin. We don't trust the experts. We think through these things. And when the legends, when the previous experts diverge from what they themselves were saying a few years ago, you know something is wrong. And I don't know what exactly is up here. All I know is that Adam Back and Greg Maxwell have this completely wrong. We believe in mempool autonomy and self-sovereignty. This is how Bitcoin has always functioned. It looks like the exodus away from Bitcoin Core to Bitcoin Knots continues, currently at almost 21% of the network and holding strong. If you want to learn how to run a Bitcoin Knots node and support the movement and help to not relay spam on the network and have a clean mempool, I'll put a link to these resources, how to run a Bitcoin Knots node, and free resources. You can either download Bitcoin Knots on your laptop or desktop. You could also run a personal server that you buy from Start9 or Umbrel, or that you build yourself using a mini PC. So these are all those free resources you can check out. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the subscribe and like buttons. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.